Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. I'm John Jannarone, Editor-in-Chief of CorpGov, here today with Bloom Energy. Momentarily, you're going to meet the CFO and CMO. We're lucky to have both of them here with us. This is a big day, especially because of the infrastructure bill passing. So we're going to talk to Greg and Sherilyn about that. Many other things momentarily. They're also going to talk about some new collaborations they've recently announced with Baker Hughes and Heliogen. We're going to talk about climate change and much, much more. Before we get into all that, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping to allow everyone to get the most out of today's session. I encourage you to submit any questions right there in the Zoom portal or to editor@corpgov.com, and we'll get to those in the second half of the program. Again, before we meet our guests, just a little bit more housekeeping to take care of. If you want to watch the replay, you can do that on corpgov.com. You can also find it under ticker BE through our partners on Bloomberg Terminals or on Yahoo Finance. Greg and Sherilyn will meet momentarily, but before we do, I'd like to show a quick video introducing those of you to the business who have, before we get to the video, something that we want to set the stage with here is from our friends at Sentio. These are mentions of clean hydrogen. We're going to talk about hydrogen quite a bit with Sherilyn and Greg later. As you can see in the last year or so, clean hydrogen, well, everyone's talking about it. A lot of this is probably through ESG disclosures, but there's no doubt that this is a huge topic, and we're going to talk to Greg and Sherilyn more about who the customers for clean hydrogen are and what it means for corporate America and companies around the world. All right, and now we're going to show a video here to introduce everyone to the Bloom Electrolyzer, and then we're going to meet Greg and Sherilyn. So Jarrett, roll the tape.
Time is up. The world desperately needs to decarbonize, but renewables alone won't get us there. Creating affordable, clean energy requires one small but mighty molecule, hydrogen. Until now, creating clean hydrogen has been too expensive, but everything's about to change. Introducing the Bloom Electrolyzer. With Bloom's unique solid oxide approach, clean hydrogen can be created more efficiently than ever. Unlike other electrolyzers, Bloom's runs at higher temperatures and requires less electricity. In short, it's the world's most efficient electrolyzer. And when paired with renewable energy sources, our electrolyzer is the best way to create low-cost, clean hydrogen. At Bloom, we believe better energy creates a better planet. So join us. Affordable, carbon-free hydrogen starts here.
All right, great. And with that, it's time to introduce today's guests, CFO Greg Cameron and Sherilyn Moore, who's the Chief Marketing Officer. Sherilyn, Greg, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having us, John.
All right, thanks a lot. So before we get into a lot of great detail, Greg, would you mind giving an overview of Bloom's technology to those who might not be familiar with how the Bloom Energy Server works? Sure.
So listen, the basis of it, and you heard it on the video, is the start of it is all of our solid oxide technology. And what that is that it allows us to operate at a higher heat and a higher efficiency, regardless of the application that we're in. We make electricity today through an electrical chemical process. So today, if you look at our natural gas server, you put natural gas in one side, and without combustion, electrons and electricity comes out the other side. And that gives us the benefit of no SOx, no NOx, no harmful particulates that come out of our machine. And that allows us to do things on a distributed basis. So we're on the customer site today creating electricity for them. We have a modular design, which means that we are able to provide resiliency to our customers. So not only is our machine resilient, but the fuel source today through natural gas is more resilient than the electrical line. And that's a key part of our value proposition. We've got about 600 megawatts of equipment out operating today. So we operate at a scale different than other folks, but it's all the basis of that solid oxide technology.
All right, great. That's really helpful. Let's bring Sherilyn in for a moment. Sherilyn, so your company's founder and CEO, K.R. Sridhar, who's a NASA scientist, is known for framing uses of energy and electricity through three key attributes: resiliency, sustainability, and cost predictability. Now, can you tell us what that means in terms of the value proposition that you bring to customers?
Sure, happy to. So first of all, you have to recognize that as an energy company, we are all in the energy industry under a backdrop of climate. And you look at the UN report that just came out yesterday, we are in code red situation. And, you know, if you think about Everything we do in energy, how critical it is that, thinking about climate and dealing with climate is right at the top of the list of interests and concerns. So first of all, resiliency. In light of climate, unfortunately, we're facing more and more extreme weather events. So in 2020, we peaked at more than $20 billion energy events, meaning extreme weather events that created more than $1 billion worth of damage for us here in the United States. So we are in this state of crisis from extreme weather, and resiliency has never been more important. So what's important to think about Bloom is we provide highly resilient, always on electricity. And as Greg said, we provide that electricity on site at a customer's premise. So it's allowing people to take control and have opportunities to drive more resiliency for the business, which is becoming more and more critical. The other part of our value proposition is around sustainability, that second leg of the stool. And clearly, when we take care of resiliency, we can't do that at the expense of sustainability in light of our climate issues and make matters worse. So on average, Bloom Energy servers, in light of not having any combustion, are typically 27% less emissions than the average grid, as just one for instance. But importantly, a Bloom Energy server is fuel flexible. So not only does it, when it uses electricity or natural gas, does it have less emissions, but it also has the ability to be able to run on renewable natural gas or biogas, which is zero carbon, and ultimately run on hydrogen, which is zero carbon. So keeping an eye towards sustainability across what we can offer customers is absolutely top of mind. The other key point of a Bloom Energy server is it doesn't use water in that process. So very little, if any, water usage is used in a Bloom Energy server. And water usage is one of the highest resources used in electricity production at large. So it's another key advantage, in addition to the air quality benefits that we've already messaged: no NOx, no SOx, no harmful air particulates. So that sustainability advantage is key. The third leg of our stool is cost predictability and predictability in general. What we're finding is, if we look at the statistics and the growth around electrification, we are only going to be needing more and more energy to make our worlds and our lives better. And when you look at everything that's going to take to be able to provide resilient energy, the costs of centralized grids and what we have to do to take care of our energy situation is only going to go up. We are, when we have businesses that are booming and need power fast, that ability to get more power when and where you need it, or called time to power, is also critical. So for a lot of our customers, what's really appealing is entering into, 15 to 20 year PPA agreements where your energy costs are predictable. Or what is appealing is the ability to put power up where and when you need it in a matter of days versus waiting on lengthy timelines and permitting processes. So, that predictability is really key. So those are the three kind of key value propositions that we offer in resiliency, sustainability, and cost predictability.
All right, great. Let's turn back to Greg and talk a bit about the technology roadmap. So Greg, the solid oxide fuel cell is already available. What else are you guys working on?
Yeah, the neat thing about the design and the way we've built the product here, it allows us to do a lot of different applications on the same server. Essentially, it doesn't need to be customized for the different applications. Sure, we'll optimize it, but the basis of how we manufacture, where we manufacture, our global supply chain is all part of that core server. So what we've been able to do is take our natural gas server, and we're currently running and showing in demonstration with a customer of ours, close partnership we have with our Korean partner SK, and we have a hydrogen solid oxide fuel cell up and running. So we're able to generate electricity using hydrogen, and we proved that out as concept. We also have the ability to use the same technology. There's almost a 90% overlap between the parts in a fuel cell as there is to an electrolyzer. And you saw the video at the beginning, you run it in reverse. and it allows you to take the electricity, put it in there, break water, and create hydrogen from there. So our electrolyzer, we're very excited about. We did the release with it last quarter, and that was the video you saw there. And we're ready to start shipping commercially towards the end of next year around that. We also have the ability, and Sherilyn just mentioned it, with biogas. We can do that on a directed basis, meaning biogas out of the gas pipes, or we can do it on an on-site basis where we actually install our machine and the cleanup equipment necessary for a customer to create electricity using landfill gas, using wastewater treatment biomass, using it from dairy and agriculture and swine and other things, and where we can use that gas through our machine and create it at no carbon, which really differentiates us today, and that we can provide that solution to our customer, not waiting for the days in which hydrogen becomes available. We can provide that to them today. If you want to use our traditional source and put an option on it around carbon capture, we can do that today. If you think of, you saw the box at the beginning, right? In what in how our machine works versus a cogen plant with a smokestack and all the fumes that come out of that. Our machine doesn't have that. We have the ability to capture carbon through a series of processes and actually reuse that CO2 and offset what a customer would need for that. And over the longer term, we're working with our partner, we're working with Samsung Heavy Industries around an application on marine. It's going to take some time to go through the testing and the engineering process. But as we move through the course of this decade, you can see a day in which a natural gas, an LNG tanker has Bloom fuel cells on it to provide not only the electricity on board for that ship, but propulsion as well. And all these come off the same basic design. So from an investment standpoint, it's quite easy to leverage the amount of investment we can get for growth, because each one of those applications is all around that core basic solid oxide fuel cell design.
All right, Greg, thanks for that overview. Let's drill into one of these areas that jumps out at me is marine. You know, Sherilyn, anyone who looks at a tanker ship can see, I mean, I'm actually here in South Florida. There are a bunch of them outside my window. You know, they're putting a lot of nasty stuff up into the air. Can you tell us about what you can do for them in a little more detail? Greg touched on it, but can you dig into it a little more for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So today, the marine industry, by and large, makes up anywhere from 2 to 3% of our total carbon emissions. What's actually even more intriguing, at least to me, is that even through energy efficiency measures, through traditional ways, without much more ambitious changes right away, the amount of emissions would grow anywhere from 40 to 50 to even 200% over the course of many years to come. So it's time for marine to think about how to power these ships differently. So as Greg mentioned, we have a very modular design. So whether we are looking at smaller cargo vessels, we're looking at cruise ships, or we're looking at some of these largest long distance marine cargo ships, our modular design fits really, really well. So we've been undergoing all of the certifications. We've recently announced that we've received through both DNV as well as ABS design certifications of our platform. And it is some minor changes relatively to our core fuel cell platform that is going to be used in this marine industry. We are working across, shipbuilders as well as, looking with, the partners like Samsung Heavy Industry. So this is a really exciting field. It is an area that is more of a multi-year prospect as far as seeing the transition really happen, but it has an opportunity to really impact the emissions by and large, and fuel cells seem to be a very ideal solution for this industry.
All right, great. We can dig more into marine later if we've got time, but I want to keep moving here and talk about hydrogen, which is really important. Greg just talked about how your equipment is able to do this in a very efficient way, but can you just talk to us about where you are with regard to a clean energy solution, and where you see the business going in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so we're really excited about a new product launch that we just released mid-month, our Bloom Energy Electrolyzer, which, as Greg teed up, is an ideal way through electrolysis to create clean hydrogen. So that has a huge opportunity. We can also use hydrogen as part of our fuel cells. Now, using hydrogen to be able to create electricity may or may not, depending on that application, make a lot of sense. But the ability to be able to create clean hydrogen on site, really through electrolysis, is the only way that we're going to get, to the clean hydrogen economy that we need. And the game-changing force here that's going to unlock this opportunity is that we have low-cost excess renewables to take advantage of that. So that low-cost excess renewable and/or excess heat is an ideal application to combine with an electrolyzer to create on-site clean hydrogen. So that is one of the areas that we are very excited about. Our tests, we've had it up and running in our labs, and we're exceeding even our expectations on what we're seeing. And as we've talked about, we see efficiencies of our platform running a higher temperature platform. Solid oxide gives us, an advantage just by the laws of physics. But, we see advantages up to 45% over other technology types in our electrolyzer. And at the end of the day, it's 80% of the cost of clean hydrogen is going to be the amount of electricity that goes into that process. So this efficiency measure of not needing as much electricity in that process is critical of driving down the cost of clean hydrogen, which is the unlock to getting to clean hydrogen, is getting that cost down.
And Sherilyn, once you've got the hydrogen, it's a wonderful fuel, right? It's relatively easy to transport. It doesn't dissipate. It'll last a long time, and it's clean when you use it as a fuel, right? I think the only after product is water, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the way to think about hydrogen is it really does fill a gap between what we have today is a really amazing system of baseload power, but unfortunately it's not clean, but it's always running. Then you have the amazing marvel of the amount of renewables that we have access to, but sometimes the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. So if you think about how do you get to a zero carbon world when you have these two worlds to straddle, hydrogen is ideal. Hydrogen provides the mechanism of being able to provide storage, as well as take advantage of the excess zero carbon renewables in solar. So it does bridge that gap really well in its storage properties as well as zero carbon properties.
Great. And Greg, if you can jump back in for a second, can you tell us about the competitive landscape? And this seems like an incredible opportunity. Is there room for more than one player? And how do you stand apart from the other guys out there?
Yeah, I think we stand apart based on the technology platform that we're on. I want to highlight two numbers that Sherilyn just spoke of. One is that the cost of creating the hydrogen, 80% of that cost is going to be the electricity. It's going to be the input cost of that. And we are up to 45% more efficient than our near competitors. So for the most critical part, the most expensive part, we're going to be the most efficient. And we think that that is a key competitive advantage for us. Listen, the one point I like to make here, right, is fuel cell technology, whether it's an electrolyzer or fuel cell, the patents date back to the 1800s, right? This is not new. What I would say is differentiated about Bloom versus its other competitors is we've been able to operate solid oxide at scale, right? We're going to do close to $1 billion, if not $1 billion in revenue this year, which is far larger than any of the providers. We can bring that scale to bear, not only in our own manufacturing capability and our own service capability, but we've created large 20 megawatt sites. And when you translate a 20 megawatt fuel cell site into electrolyzers, that's a 50 megawatt site on round. So these are large facilities that we know we have the know-how in the experience to go create. So we think we've got the right technology with the right team on the right platform to really be competitive in this space. We're really excited about it.
All right, great. Sherilyn, just one more question here on hydrogen, if we can. Which industries are the primary beneficiaries of this? I mean, you can imagine all kinds of uses, but are there some that are gravitating to it right away?
Yeah, I think we're hitting on a few of these key concepts, but really looking at where does hydrogen, it will be a multi-year journey to really embrace hydrogen as both a fuel as well as a storage mechanism, to solve our energy needs long term. And there are certain industries that are going to be able to take advantage of hydrogen and should take advantage of hydrogen sooner rather than later. And some of the key industries are the industries that are hardest to abate. So if you look at steelmaking alone represents, it's one of the big three contributors to carbon emissions. It makes up about 8% of our carbon emissions comes from the steelmaking process. Now, there are other hard to abate industries such as cement and glass and chemical that are also hard to abate. The ability to be able to, do what they're able to do and be a really strong member of its own value chain, whether it's steel, with its, suppliers being, or its customers being automakers, having a more zero carbon mechanism is also going to be something that they need to provide to their customers that are going to demand it. So moving sooner rather than later, we do see those hardest to abate industries like steelmaking. And this is where we think there's particular advantage to the fact that we've mentioned a few times that Bloom runs at higher temperature. What that also means is not only can we use electricity as the input to split water and create hydrogen, but we can use steam. And guess what happens when you're running a furnace 24/7 to create steel? There's excess steam as you cool these furnaces down. That excess steam is a contributing input to be able to create clean hydrogen. That clean hydrogen then is used on site to actually produce the steel. So you have this wonderful virtuous effect of being able to not only produce clean hydrogen, but use excess renewable as part of its input, but its own excess steam as part of the input. So there again, every penny matters in an industry like this. And if you can create on-site clean hydrogen in the most effective, efficient way possible, that's going to be highly desirable. So again, we do see that this is the industry that needs to move the soonest, and we do see the huge advantage in being able to use the high input, the high temperature steam, as well as electricity from a Bloom solid oxide electrolyzer.
Great. I just want to remind the audience, we're happy to take questions. So easiest thing to do is put them there in the Zoom portal. We've got plenty more material to cover, but we'll start sprinkling them in if you've got some for Greg and Sherilyn here. Greg, let's shift to something else. Let's talk about carbon capture, which is an application based on your platform. Can you give us an overview of how that works and what the market opportunity looks like?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? It's from a technology standpoint, what we can do is we take the exhaust, right, which is predominantly some water and some CO2, and given the advantages that we have based on what I was saying before with the flue gases versus some of the other technologies, we start in a better spot. Right. If you think about it from a technology standpoint, not trying to look through all that flue gas to pick out the CO2 molecules that may be relatively small. Ours is pure, up to 65% pure of what's coming out. And we can use a series of membranes or other technologies in order to capture that CO2. And what's really exciting as we talk to some customers are some of our customers need CO2 as part of their input process. And you could think about a cycle here in which you were able to have a customer on site not only use the Bloom server to generate electricity, but offset the cost of CO2. They can either use it themselves, they can sell it to offset the cost of their electricity, or they can choose to sequester it if that's where they want to do and pump it into the ground. And based on some of the credits, that must be the best opportunity for them. I think what we're going to see though, it's going to be in large industrial, large utility type scales. I think just if you think about the optional equipment that needs to go around with this and the sequester and some of the compression equipment that's going to need to be with it, this isn't something you're going to see out behind a retail store or at a small, 750 kilowatt application. These are going to be large industrial utility type applications that we can get there. We're talking to a few, some customers around it, both on the industrial side as well as on the utility side. And I think there's going to be huge applications for that option on our existing fuel cell.
Great. Now, Greg, there was actually a question that came in an email about who what the typical customer profile looks like. Can you work with smaller customers who are really interested in your technology, or is it mainly, are we talking big scale? I mean, I'm just wondering what the ballpark figures are to get started.
Yeah. Our ideal customer, right, is going to be using our machine for base load. Meaning that based on the way our machine is set up, we're not a backup power. We're not like a generator you put out back. So we're going to need a base load power. We don't really work in the residential area to a single home or a series of homes. You can create microgrids around that. But our ideal customer in the US is, think of them around data centers, hospitals, some big box retail that's there, some corporate headquarters as well, anywhere in which you need to make sure you've got a resilient solution to make sure that you can power through any weather event is an ideal customer for us, because they're going to find value in having our machine there versus buying from the grid and having a bunch of backup diesel generators that they have to service for when they're going to need them. It's not a question of if, when they're going to need them, and hope that they work. And then, hope they don't have them on too long by the time they start spewing all the exhaust to their neighbors and get the complaints in. So that's our ideal customer. I think as we continue to grow, we're seeing real opportunities and some of our expansion opportunities to get into larger applications. We do in South Korea work in the Genco, in the power generation sector, but in the US, we're primarily in the US C&I, the consumer and the commercial and industrial sector.
Okay, that makes sense. Cheryl, let's go back to you. If you want to talk quickly, just a little bit more about the rollout plan for carbon capture, and then let's talk about biogas.
Yeah, so carbon capture, I think Greg covered it well. We see carbon capture being a really suitable application for larger industrial rollouts. Maybe they need that carbon, or they want to sequester the carbon, or utility applications. And increasingly, like we serve utilities in Korea, generation companies in Korea, we can see the combination of our fuel cells of being in front of the meter, as well as solutions like carbon capture being ideally suited for utility applications as well. And the rollout is going to look likely similar to what you'd expect for any sort of large industrial application. You'll see pilots proven, and then you see proven pilots go to a really large scale. So that's what we'd expect in carbon capture, and looking at these pilots really activating in the next year timeframe. So now I think you teed up biogas. This is a pretty intriguing area for us, because being able to provide on-site power in a zero carbon way while we're waiting on hydrogen we're really keen on, and many of our customers, a lot of the Fortune 500 plus customers, they want to invest in zero carbon technologies today, and the ability to run our fuel cells on this directed biogas or renewable natural gas is really interesting. And so we're working, we've got a variety of applications. Many some have just gone operational that we're excited to talk about. We haven't done the official public announcements on, but our test results are looking really interesting. There's also a very interesting circular concept where you might have customers that have on-site biogas to take advantage of. Think of wastewater, think of landfills, think of very large dairies where they need electricity, as well as we need to capture that methane. So you're really able to do two things at once: capture that methane, as well as provide on-site electricity. And there are credits in the state of California, the low carbon fuel standard credits, which also make it very attractive to capture methane and provide solutions back via electricity. So that's why we're very excited about biogas. But again, you're looking at how do we get access to enough supply of biogas, and how do we make sure it's economical and affordable? So while we are waiting to get to that step of the equation, we've also recently announced that we are converting all of our fleet to responsibly sourced gas. And what that means is, for our customers that are either currently using natural gas or will be using natural gas on their fleets moving forward, we're going to ensure that we have established that gas via credits is responsibly sourced gas. And what's really incredible is that you can actually, through the sourcing mechanism of natural gas, eliminate the leaks that represent about 75% of the methane. So the combination of eliminating the methane and not using the natural gas in combustion dramatically improves the profile of natural gas as a fuel. So it's something that Bloom can do now, and we can do now in a very economical and affordable way for our customers, while we're looking to get the access and the low cost zero carbon fuels like RNG and hydrogen in the future. So, what Bloom's going to do is we're going to take advantage of every mechanism we can to provide, low cost, affordable, zero carbon fuels, and provide that path where if we use natural gas today, maybe it's 5 years from now, but we can also migrate that customer to RNG or hydrogen in the future. But what's great is that even in that path, no matter where you are, every customer will be brought up to responsibly sourced gas, and we're starting that effective next year.
All right, great. Let's talk about something more big picture, Greg, if we can. Renewable energy at large is a huge market. If you've got more and more demand coming in, are you in a position do you have the capacity that's required to serve all these customers?
Yeah, it's a timely question. So the way we manufacture is we have our stacks and columns, the inside of the fuel cells manufactured here in California, in Sunnyvale, and then we ship those to Newark, Delaware for final manufacturing and assembly, where we complete the process, and then they leave Delaware's completed fuel cells or electrolyzers, what have you. Today, in Delaware, we have enough capacity to do 4 times what we do today, and the ability to scale that up even more as we go forward. Fortunately or unfortunately, in Sunnyvale, we are sold out. We have every fuel cell stack accounted for, and it'll be a limiter on us. So we're in the process of doing 2 things. We're taking a move in our to our 5th generation of technology. We call it Bloom 7.5. It's got 50% more power density to it than our current 5.0 machine, and that will be the future platform which we're built on. So we're changing over to Bloom 7.5. At the same time, we've leased a 164,000 square foot facility in Fremont, California. We think it's important to have our stack manufacturing close to our engineers today. So we've leased that facility, and we're in the process of building it out. For roughly about $200 million, we can build a gigawatt of 7.5 capacity here. And that's on a fuel cell basis. And based on some rating differences, you almost get 2.5 times that on an electrolyzer basis. Based on our forecast, we need it as early as next year. So we're meeting, that engineering team meets with me on a weekly basis to make sure that they're on track and on time. We're going to add a little bit more capacity to our Sunnyvale facility in the short term to make sure we can meet our customers' needs next year. But that facility should be able to help us grow over the next 2-3 years and fill up Delaware as well. Based on what we're seeing for growth, at that point, we're probably looking for our next facility. So the interesting thing for us, and it's part of our strategy difference, right, is if you think about Bloom, I want to be a manufacturing excellence company. I want to be an engineering innovation company. I want to be a world provider and distribution and a market leader around really driving innovation and changing the market. And we're going to do that through a focus on our product. So we think that's the best return for our shareholders. We think we service our customers the best and go do that. And the payback period on this is less than a year at fully capacity. So we've got a very virtuous cycle as we build those out, and we'll work with our customers to buy those machines, and they can use them to create electricity or hydrogen and use all the fuel flexibility for it. So it's very interesting in days in our investment right now. And we're excited to get 7.5 and the Fremont facility up over the course of 2022.
All right. And just really quick, Greg, what about staff? Are there plenty of talented people out there who fit the needs that you have? Are they excited about working for Bloom Energy?
Yeah, we've been out, and we've been very like a lot of folks. We've been out advertising and making it known that we are looking to hire associates. So we actually had an all-employee call yesterday, and KR Sridhar, our CEO, reached out and said, if you've got friends, if you've got family that could be working with us, please send them our way. We're hiring, and we think we'll continue to do that, both here in California as well as in Delaware, as we continue to grow out our business.
All right, great. Let's go back to Sherilyn for a moment here. Sherilyn, let's talk about some of your collaborations. There are several. In fact, there's a question from the audience about Heliogen. We can dig more into that one later, but can you touch on a couple of the most important ones for us?
Yeah, so let's see. In the marine space, our first partner that we announced was Samsung Heavy Industries, where collectively we look to demonstrate fuel cells to power the marine industry, and have made good progress with them, as I talked about. Heliogen, you mentioned that one. It's an exciting one. So they are, a CSP, consolidated solar provider, a concentrated solar provider, excuse me. where if you picture out in the desert, huge installations where you're capturing as much of that sun as possible in a very innovative way. Guess what happens when you capture that much sun? Not only is that great electricity, but there's excess electricity and excess heat that can be used to also create clean hydrogen. So that's what we intend to do together. We're great companion technologies to do really large solar and green hydrogen programs together to take advantage of both of our efficiencies and both of our scale. So we really look forward to working on some of those projects with Heliogen. CalBio is a good example of a partner that we're working with in dairies in the state of California with renewable natural gas and working together there. And then we've announced partnerships with Idaho National Labs that'll be testing or is testing our electrolyzer product and looking at testing it using excess nuclear or thermal energy, which is another interesting application. If you think about, I know we touched on this earlier and I didn't make this point, what hydrogen really brings in its mix of storage as well as the ability to use it for energy and fuel is it works really well as part of an energy ecosystem. And if you look at the times of the day of the classic duck curve, in nuclear, you will have times of the day that there's excess nuclear and excess heat. That's a great time of day to use that asset to be able to harness that and capture and create clean hydrogen. So again, hydrogen fitting as a puzzle piece in our large energy equation just makes sense. So we look forward to the testing with Idaho National Lab, Department of Energy. And then we've also announced partnerships with SK, large Korean conglomerate, and we'll be doing some hydrogen fueling station projects, which we're excited to do as Korea will be an early mover and has declared, Korea as will be a hydrogen economy. So we look forward to continuing expansions. And then the last one that we're doing a lot of interesting customer work every day with is Baker Hughes. And Baker Hughes bringing its really strong, longstanding relationships in oil and gas, its compressor technology, which is a great companion to our hydrogen. They provide great technology fit, but they also provide great channel fit for us. And we are a great culture fit together. So we're doing a lot of great customer work in the field already.
All right, great. This is a good segue because I wanted to ask Greg about the company's international footprint. I mean, what I just heard is that you've got collaborations all over the world. So can you just tell us, how you look at that opportunity globally, Greg? And by the way, Greg, it looks like your technology works just about anywhere, right? So there's no reason for you to be especially focused on one country over another.
No, we were really excited at how fast our South Korean partnership. I mean, we did our first order with them in our first agreement in 2018, and they've really grown up. I think really grown quite quickly, and we like that. We value that relationship very much. Listen, selling internationally, part of what we realized was you need a presence. It's hard to sell in the Middle East and in Europe and Asia from San Jose, California. So towards the end of last year, we hired on Aziz Mohammed. Aziz is a former GE colleague of mine. He ran some very large power businesses within the old GE infrastructure business. And Aziz has hired up professionals in Europe, in Asia, including Australia, in as well as the Middle East. And I think as we look at it, we're seeing some really interesting opportunities in Europe. I think it looks similar to our US C&I type business based on the customer opportunities we're seeing, but we're finding some good partners, we're finding good EPCs and financiers that can come in and help provide that resiliency solution to those customers. I think as we look in Asia outside of Korea, we're seeing some interesting power generation, some Genco type plays, similar to Korea, but maybe not as of a larger relationship, but some definite opportunities that are there where our fuel cell fits very well with the incentives that they've put in place, and they're anxious to partner with us. So I think those are interesting. As you move down into Australia, not only do you have the intermittent renewables that are interesting and how do you team up there, but you're definitely seeing within there, as well as some of the islands, a diesel replacement strategy. right? In our ability, for a lot of countries and in islands and things, they're using diesel generation as baseload power. And you think about how expensive that is and how dirty that is. And we're working with some partners thinking about, okay, how do we get gas, LNG there? And then how do we utilize our fuel cells to get cleaner, more resilient, more cost predictable power? And I think our value proposition works really well there. Aziz I met with him yesterday when he was over here. He is very excited about his opportunities in front of him, and his team is energized. And I'm hopeful to announce a large deal, in the coming quarters as part of a confirmation of our strategy.
Great. I want to talk about the infrastructure bill, which of course is very timely, but just real quick, Greg, someone's asking about the timing of 7.5. So I think it was last quarter, it was just rolled out. So it's already being deployed as we speak, or?
No, we are in the process of operationalizing it. So we have it out at beta sites and we're gathering the data from it, and we're doing some more installations to make sure we're there. Listen, it is a large technology leap. And I think we've probably underplayed that on some of our larger calls. If you think about it, it's a different manufacturing process. In some ways, it's a much larger surface area. And the team is going through that process of making sure we can operationalize the build, we can bring it in on time and bring it in at cost. And they are very much focused on that. What we've communicated is somewhere in the back half of 2022, we will transition to where the majority of the machines that we'll be making will be Bloom 7.5 for revenue. But we've got a lot of work to do between now and then, and part of that is filling out that Fremont facility that we have. So we'll always keep we'll keep our 5.0 technology here for a while. It services. We have a large installed base we need to service with those units, but we're anxious to move over to 7.5 and operationalize that over the course of 2022.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Now, Greg, of course, this morning, big news: the Senate supported the infrastructure bill. Went through with a lot of support. House is still there, but can you tell us what that might mean for Bloom, at the business broadly?
Exciting. We got a bipartisan bill, and we have everybody supporting it. And we've got, looks like, about $550 billion of new spending coming in. And the areas of focus line up really well with the Bloom strategy. First, around clean energy, we've been talking a lot about hydrogen, carbon capture. There's money in there in order to facilitate demonstrations and continue to expand out on our technologies, and we think we'll partner well within that space. There's a lot of discussion around there. We all see what's happening with climate change. We're seeing the number of weather events. We're going from 1 in 100 years to 3 times in one season around some things. So there's money there to build resiliency into the grid. We think we play very well in that space. And then there's some money in there at water infrastructure. And we think the ability for our machines to help provide resiliency, whether we do them on a biogas basis or not, on renewable natural gas, our ability to help provide solutions to customers in that place. If you think back to Texas, right, and we all watched those events earlier this year, first the electrical grid went, it took then the gas grid with it, and then it took water. And people can figure out, over a period of time, and how to make sure that they're staying fed and warm. When the toilets don't flush and they can't get clean water, that becomes a much more shorter term immediate need. So we think we play in there. We'll see what comes out of the reconciliation bill. It seems as though we've gotten one vote. We haven't even taken it through the House yet, and everybody's moved on to what's next with the reconciliation bill. For me, one of the largest takeaways is I'm very encouraged by the categories and where we're going to invest in as a country, but also just having clarity around where those investments are going to be made so the private sector can invest, and what the incentives are going to look like, and give the confidence to the private sector to invest. I think that's where you get the leverage off of a spend like that. So we're encouraged by it. Our teams worked very hard to make sure that they've kept us abreast of what's happening there. And I think that we've gotten out of this a great bipartisan effort as a country to help invest in our future.
Great. And can we just drill down a little bit, Greg, on what it might mean for hydrogen specifically? Is there something to talk about there yet, or is it early?
I think the issue with hydrogen is going to be, and we had Secretary Granholm on an Aspire event. These are quarterly events we pull together and try to bring thought leadership together. And Secretary Granholm was speaking of the moonshot, right, of getting to $1 a kilogram within the decade. And we are very much within Bloom signed up for that and willing to help out any way we can to make sure we do it. I think what'll be interesting, and Sherilyn touched on this, is as you look at the way that the incentives are playing out and the way the demonstrations are going to happen, the adoption curve, right, is going to be what's going to drive the different technologies within hydrogen. We tend to think that the industrial applications, the harder to decarbonize, high heat, high carbon industrial applications are probably first to happen, given that you can do that on site and create that virtuous heat cycle back and forth. As you start moving into larger, broader applications and bringing in the compression and distribution of hydrogen, the costs get more expensive. I think storage is probably in the next most logical after the industrial side. And I think there's incentives lined up for customers to invest in those spaces and do the demonstrations necessary. And I think that's, as we're beginning to see it, until we start creating scale as an industry around flexing these muscles, creating these applications, getting them installed in customers on their sites and them using the technology, until you can get to that point, it's hard to get people to get excited around investing their limited capital funds to go do that. So we're very excited about the investment there.
Great. Sherilyn, I see that you just saw that question coming in. Someone wants to meet Aziz, someone who wants to make a deal with you. So Sherilyn, I was going to suggest that you can send an email to editor@CorpGov, but
you can make that suggestion. I was going to offer aziz.mohammed@bloomenergy.com.
There you go.
Either way will work.
All right, great. Greg, you just reported earnings, so we don't want to spend too much time on this, but can you just give us a taste of what was most important to take away from there? Big revenue growth, reiterated guidance.
Yeah. I mean, it was, our volumes were up 40% year over year, second quarter. Our revenues were up 21% year over year. We were excited about that. We were cash flow positive on CFOA, cash flow from operations, which has been a big part of our growth trajectory, right, is moving away from burning cash and be creating cash for our investors. First part is get it out of your core operations and then become completely cash efficient from there on free cash flow. But you got to get to CFOA positive first. We were $54 million positive within the quarter. We were very excited. We were excited about that. Listen, like a lot of folks in not only in the fuel cell sector, but in the industrial sector, the world is roaring back. I know we have not exited this pandemic, and with Delta, it makes us feel like we're going through it all over again, but the world economy is getting stronger. It's stressing the supply chains. We're feeling that no different. Getting components is harder to do. Getting freight costs are up significantly, and our supply chain team has done an amazing job. Our costs, our basic business model here is we want to drive down the cost of our product 10 to 15% every year. And then we're happy with the gross margins that we get on our product. So it's all about opening new markets with that price reduction down. So team's done an amazing job. As we look forward into the second half of the year, we've got a big lift. We've reaffirmed we're going to be somewhere between $950 and $1 billion, $950 million and $1 billion of revenue based on the timing of those last couple transactions that need to get installed by year end. We're targeting 25% gross margins, up significantly from prior year, and we're going to be operating income positive 2 to 3 points of revenue for the year. We're approaching CFOA positive. At some point, I'm going to get the absolute confidence to say we'll be $1 positive, but right now I'm still saying we're approaching it. But we were very encouraged by the quarter that we turned in, and we're very excited for a second half where we've got a lot of work to get done, but we see how to do it, and we're excited to go get it done.
All right. Can you tell us about how Bloom Energy fared during COVID, how it impacted business?
Yeah, it was interesting. I joined on March 1st. In fact, I was out, I've lived traditionally in the Midwest. So I came out from Chicago and met with the team in March. And at the end of the week, we met with the board and said, Greg, you're going to join the team. I was really excited about it. That Monday, the state of California went into its lockdown and everybody went home from the office. Year over year, the team, the impacts of COVID were happening kind of late 2019, especially around the supply chain in Asia. As you saw it there, the team did an amazing job of finding new sources of material and components in different geographies in order to keep it going. We worked our way through that. Our next big question was, as it came to the US, was how would we keep our factories open in Sunnyvale and California and Newark, Delaware? We were deemed a essential business. We went very quickly through a process of making sure we could keep our employees safe if we were going to manufacture. And through a lot of hard work by that team, we were able to continue to manufacture through the process. So the supply chain was giving us the parts, the factory was up and running. And then from there, we were able to, through the course of the year, install enough of our product in our customer sites. And the days it wasn't easy. You remember back in last summer this time, trying to find an inspector to come out and and say, yeah, you guys are on track and on permit, and you can now power up as part of your customers. There were some delays, especially in the third quarter where you had both weather and COVID happen. But we did it. And our stretch goal when I got here was to keep revenue flat year over year, which we were able to grow it $5 million. So it was quite impressive, as well as to make sure that we had the backlog booked that we could provide a 25 to 30% growth for us this year. So the business performed very well, and in the need for our product actually increased through the period of COVID.
Great. Greg, just a question about how customer transactions look, how they work. Are these customers usually big enough that the money they need to put down to work with you is manageable, or do they have to structure financing? How does that usually work?
There's three ways in which a customer can buy from us. They can either buy it in a tolling arrangement through a PPA, where they're buying it by the cents per kilowatt hour. They can buy it through a lease transaction that we can arrange for them, or they can buy it through CapEx. Just buy it straight out and buy a service contract to go with it. Generally, 85% of what we do is through that PPA structure. So a customer will sign an agreement for 15 years, say, through a financial provider, and then they'll get a tolling agreement for that. So there's no money down to the customer. And then they're able to pay for their electricity over time and get the benefits of the cost savings, maybe against what they're getting to the grid. Definitely when they put in the cost of an outage, when they put in the cost of backup power generation, we generally can provide them a savings when they take in the complete value proposition that we're able to provide to them. But I would say most generally it's through a PPA structure, a managed service structure, or a lease second, and CapEx third.
Okay, great. So, we talked about Heliogen a little bit. Someone's asking about Heliogen and then MIQ. Can you talk any more about that, Greg? I don't know how much detail we can get into. I mean, we touched on it.
Yeah, I'd give that question to Cheryl Lynn if I could.
Please.
Yeah, what was the question about MIQ?
So someone's asking about emissions in the process and saving 75% of emissions. Can you just talk about, I guess it's the emissions reduction that's made possible there?
Yeah, so when we made the comment about emissions reduction 75%, that was regarding responsibly sourced gas and the amount of methane leaks that we could save that much. I don't know if that had anything to do with Heliogen or not, but maybe if that wasn't exactly where that question was going, maybe they could clarify, and we'll make sure we answer it.
Yeah. And also, we've only got about 5 minutes. So if anyone's got a question they haven't asked, or if you want to follow up on that, just email editor@corpgov.com, and I'll make sure that goes straight to Greg and Sherilyn. Someone's asking about business in China. Can we talk about that anymore? Either what you're working on now or future plans?
So far as the list of countries that we sell to, China is not yet on that. It has to do largely with the protection of our IP, and then we've not entered that market.
Okay, gotcha. All right, there's a question I wanted to ask Sherilyn. Is there any message you can convey to investors just about what makes you different? There are a lot of choices out there. I mean, on our various programs, we've met a lot of different companies, but can you explain just in a nutshell what makes you different from the others out there? If someone's thinking, I want to invest in green energy.
I think what's really unique about Bloom is, one, we've perfected solid oxide fuel cell technology, which makes us very unique just from a core platform perspective. And solid oxide as a technology has a variety of advantages, and we hit on a few of them with its higher temperature electrolyzer, so when it's running in reverse. As a company, we're the largest fuel cell company that has proven technologies, more than 500 megawatts deployed, which means we've had the experience and the people, as well as the capacity to meet growing needs. The modularity and the flexibility of what we can provide customers for on-site power is very unique. And the fact that you can, have an on-site power solution that is resilient, that does have a path to, low to zero carbon, while at the same time provides predictable, resilient energy over the long haul, I think is an increasingly unique and will be an in-demand solution. And the fact that we can scale from, a large box retailer all the way through large utility scale deployments gives us a variety of opportunities and applications, both in front of the meter, behind the meter, United States, Korea, Europe, worldwide, so that applicability and flexibility of the technology across both geographies as well as applications just really makes Bloom very unique. And I think increasingly you're going to see us focused on how do we create the accessibility for the platforms we have, whether it's modifying the platform for new applications like marine, whether it's adding on complementary capabilities like carbon capture, or it's building a partner of ecosystem partners like Baker Hughes or Heliogen to be able to provide new applications or introduce us to new customer types. So I think it's that flexibility, the modularity, and just the sheer amazing capability and beats we've had to mature over the last 20 years of solid oxide fuel cell.
Great. And Sherilyn or Greg, can you just tell me how you look at technology risk? I mean, it sounds like what we discussed the last hour here is that you're in many cases able to adapt something you've already worked with and you understand it. So it's not like you're having to make something up out of thin air, right? So I mean, you're growing really fast, but do you have a philosophy about how you manage execution and technology risk like that?
The basis of it really starts with that core server is the same. And your ability to optimize that for the different applications. So when I sit back and think about with the team, how much manufacturing capacity will I need for next year? How much will I need for the year? How much will I need the year following? Unlike other product companies where you're going through and trying to forecast exactly where you think the customer needs going to be and say, okay, at this factory, I'll need so much, this factory. We can do it and say, I think I need about this much. Whether it comes to me as a hydrogen fuel cell or a natural gas fuel cell, whether it comes to me as an electrolyzer or a fuel cell with carbon capture technology, I'm indifferent to. And it's really just thinking about making sure that I can support the growth of the business and have the capacity ready to go do it. We can optimize it later on once we know exactly where the market is. It gives us huge confidence in which to invest.
Great. All right. And I think we got time for one more here. Someone's asking about your capital structure as you move through cash flow improvement. You just cash flow positive already. So how do you look at that? I mean, I would imagine that you could deploy some leverage given the profile of your customer contracts.
Yeah, it was a heavy lift last year. When I got here on April 1st, we had one of our old converts that was not, we weren't able to successfully retire that debt, and it was due within 9 months. So we worked with our bank structure back then, the banker back then, we extended it, but it was very expensive in order to do that. And we took on the effort to say, let's go through and make sure that we've got not only our capital structure right, but the cost of our capital is right. And through the course of a small debt raise that we were able to do in August, we did a lot of transition. I'm happy to report I got 100 million less debt and 100 million more cash than I had when we got here. So we've got the flexibility in which we need to invest in the technology roadmap that we have. We are very judicious about where we spend our money as a company, knowing that we've got a lot of opportunities in front of us and they are all screaming for investment, but we're going to make sure that the ones that we invest in, we're going to get a payback in line with what our shareholders expect. So we're comfortable where we are. And we constantly relook it to make sure that we are funding our growth in a responsible way.
All right, great. Well, I think on that note, we're going to have to wind it down. This has been a terrific hour. The time flew by. Sherilyn and Greg, thank you so much to all of you who watched, answered questions. Just one thing to remember, if you'd like to watch the replay, just find it under the BE ticker on Bloomberg terminals, on Yahoo Finance, or on CorpGov.com. That'll be up in about 2 hours. If you get any further questions, I'm happy to share them with Sherilyn and Greg, so send them to editor@CorpGov.com. Sherilyn, Greg, thank you again so much. It's been a terrific afternoon. We really appreciate you joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.